Man, Echoes of Wisdom is so fun. I think one of the really cool and unique parts about this game is that they finally gave Link and Zelda a more unique weapon to use, the Sword of Might. Instead of every game giving them the Master Sword. After all, the Master Sword's been the main weapon in like every Zelda game. Wait, what's that? What do you mean the Master Sword's only the main weapon out of 10 games, 9 if you group the Oracle games together, because, everyone does, out of the 21 mainline Zelda games. That means, though it makes up a good portion, the Master Sword is not the majority, it's not in the majority of Zelda games, if you really think about it. Well, it looks like here today, folks, we're going to be going over the main legendary weapons that are in the Zelda series. Now, note, we're not talking about every sword in the game. We're not about to talk about the like Kokiri sword or the hero sword, razor sword, like not the basic swords. We're talking about the cool ones. Your final weapon for completing the game, or at least about to complete the game. And so that also means we're not going over every sword in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, because I'm not insane. Well, I am insane, but not that kind of insane. And of course, if you enjoy watching somebody randomly yap about Zelda, make sure you like and subscribe because I am participating in Zelda month. So for the whole month of November, I'm going to be doing a bunch of random topics on Zelda, talking about it. So subscribe if you like more. And if we can somehow hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of December, I will get a Zelda tattoo, which will be chosen by you, the people, watching this video. So, with that being out of the way, we're going to talk some swords. And I'm going to talk about these in any random order. So, it's not chronological, it's not most powerful, the weakest. I'm just going to be talking about the swords. But there's only one that I want you to keep in mind because the very last sword I'm going to talk about, I think actually might be the most powerful sword in the Zelda series. Even more powerful than the Master Sword. So, if you're interested in what that could be, stay tuned as we get started here. Now, if we're going to talk about legendary swords in Zelda, we're going to have to start off with the probably most well-known one, being the Four Sword from Minish Cap and the, Four Swords games. Now, this sword's kind of interesting because it's forged out of another legendary sword. If you've never played Minish Cap, let me give you a quick rundown. You see, there's this sword called the Picori Blade. It's going from the Picori to the hero. And the hero did some good, sealed away the darkness, yada yada, and then later the sword gets snapped in half. Link takes that sword and reforges it into the white sword, which, putting in the elemental powers, becomes the Four Sword. So, kind of crazy that there's two games in Zelda's history where you get to build your sword, but it also is kind of interesting how the Four Sword changes from game to game. In the Minish Cap, you get the sword, you hold it, and then you can make clones by standing on specific tiles. But in the Four Sword games, when you draw the sword, it physically splits you apart instead of making clones. So I wonder if maybe it being sealed away either A, allowed it to like draw in some more power and become more powerful, or if it stole power from Vati, thus making it stronger. Either way, the Four Swords probably one of the most recognized legendary swords from Zelda. And it's really cool. I'm a big fan of the Four Swords games, even though I played them by myself. Anyways, on to the next sword. Now, besides the Four Sword, the probably most well-known sword in the Zelda series would probably be the Helix Blade, or is it probably more well-known as the Fierce Deity's Sword. Now, this sword's pretty cool. It's one of the only swords you can get in the 3D games that get to shoot a beam. Until Breath of the Wild, really the beams of the swords were kind of kept to the 2D game, so it's kind of interesting. What's also really interesting is how you acquire it. See, you get the Fierce Deity sword only when you transform into the obviously named Fierce Deity. But that means the sword transforms from whatever you have on hand. See, when you play Majora's Mask, when you put on any transformation mask, your body does change a good bit. And so does the Ocarina of Time, turning into a instrument appropriate for that race. But you usually don't keep your sword. The Deku, like when you become Deku Link, you get your tuba. We don't got like a Deku sword, you just attack when you spin around or blow bubbles. When you play as Zora, you don't have a sword. You just like launch your fins. When you play as the Goron, you're boxing people up. Still don't got a sword. But for some reason with the Fierce Deity, your sword transforms into the Fierce Deity sword, no matter what sword you have on you. So I'm not sure how that works. It's something I don't think many people really think about either, probably because it's not like the biggest deal. But I'm a person who pays attention to those small details, and that's something I've always thought about. Now, we actually got another sword entry from Majora's Mask, and that being the Great Fairy Sword. Now, if you get all the fairies from Stone Tower Temple, you're able to get this sword, and it's kind of funny because Link needs two hands to equip it, even though it looks about the same size as the Master Sword. But it's one of the most powerful swords in the game, and because it's given to you by the Great Fairy, I'm pretty sure it's decently powerful, like magically as well. Could it seal something like Ganon? Probably not, but it sure would hurt him. Now, I don't know why I didn't talk about this sword first, but we have now the Sword of Might from the hit Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom. Now, I wasn't kidding when I said this sword's pretty cool, but it also isn't really a legendary sword. See, I kind of thought it was, because I hadn't replayed the game in a while. But when I was researching for this video, I got reminded, like, the sword's just made by Blueberry. Like, it was just bro saw some cool blue rocks, hammered them together to make a sword. So it's not really a legendary weapon, but it's your main weapon in Echoes of Wisdom. So I thought I would just throw it in just to make sure you guys don't say, oh, you forgot about the Sword of Might. Now, those were some of the cooler swords. But next up, we got a kind of a basic one, being the Magic Sword from the original Zelda game. I'm not really sure if the sword counts as a legendary sword, but it's the final sword you can get in the game. And so I feel like it would be weird if I didn't include it, because I feel like it's just, kind of iconic for Zelda 1. But this sword you can find in a cave, and you can only pick it up if you have 12 heart containers. And that's really it. It's basic, it's cool, but it was the first Zelda game, was supposed to be just okay. Now, next up, we got probably one of the funniest swords, and that being the Locomo Sword. Guarantee most of you have probably never heard of it, but can take a wild guess where it's from. I'll give you a second now to think. Yeah, Spirit Tracks. Now, this sword is kind of almost like a basic thing they did in a lot of the non-Master Sword Zelda games. They're like, there's this evil that can only be sealed by this specific sword. What's this sword do? Seal that guy. And that's really it. And I'm not complaining. It kind of makes sense that the Master Sword's meant to seal Ganon. Though it says Master Sword seals evil. I mean, come on. It's only used against Ganon. It's the Ganon sealing device. Other swords would be used in the same way. The Locomo Sword is meant for Malladus, the evil demon train. Locomo Sword used against an evil train. I mean, come on. It fits perfectly. And for one of our more unmagical swords, we have to head into the dreaming of the Windfish to find the Koholint Sword. This sword you can really get at any point in the game. It's your reward for collecting all the seashells. And there's not much to it. It's just an upgrade to your regular sword, and you can shoot sword beams with it. I'm assuming it's a special sword though, because, well, it's named after the island. And I'm assuming because it's made from the mind of the Windfish, it might hold some magical properties. But that's a lot of ifs, and maybes, and a whole lot of speculation. But, that's just kind of what I gotta do when there's not really too much story to the sword. Now, we're going to move on to the final sword. The sword that I think is probably the most powerful in the Zelda, like, canon. And we don't gotta go too far. We just gotta go from the dreaming of one wingfish to go into the dreaming of the Ocean King, which is a giant whale. See, we're gonna be looking at Phantom Hourglass, probably one of the least played Zelda games. And even then, probably one of the least beat. I'm sure some of you have picked it up, played it, and then got bored or hated the controls. I did too. I was gifted this game back in like middle school, and I didn't go and finish it till last year, which I realize doesn't make sense without the context of that being about 9 years. But anyways, Phantom Hourglass. In that game, just like its sequel game, the Spirit Tracks, you get a sword called the Phantom Sword that's specifically made to kill a specific demon called Bellum. But this sword is a little bit more special. See, you do forge it in the game, just like in Minish Cap, but there's something special about it. It has a special ability that no other sword has. Sure, the Force Sword lets you split into four, and sure, the Master Sword, when put in the pedestal only in Ocarina of Time, allows you to travel through time. But the Phantom Sword lets you stop time completely. If you draw a hourglass, you're able to stop time in the game. It's really hard to do it, and you can only do it against the final boss. But it's not only A, super cool, but B, that's pretty busted. And that's kind of why I think it's one of the most powerful swords in the Zelda series. You just straight up stop time. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But I would take a decently strong sword that's the ability to stop time over just any powerful sword that can shoot beams every day of the week. So, that should be every legendary special sword you can get in the Zelda series. Do you have a favorite? Though I said the Phantom Sword is probably the strongest, my personal favorite, I think, is the Four Sword. The Four Sword games are kind of basic, multiplayer fun, but I just think it's cool. And I like how in the Minish Cap, you're building the sword up. But let me know down below what your favorite is. And also, of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. As I already mentioned, if we get 1,000 subscribers, you, the viewers, get to pick my Zelda tattoo. And next time, we're going to be talking about Zelda dungeons, specifically how the changes went from the classic dungeons to the more current era of dungeons. So, stay tuned for that, and see you next time.